estate and mortgages and heritage, and what is very important also, even in transactional agreements, maybe you have a dispute and through lawyers or through mediation, you do a transactional agreement about the conflict before or suspending a procedure. And in that case, this agreement, this transactional agreement done before the public notary becomes what we call escritura pública, which is a public document that could be presented anywhere before the court, and it has the same value as a decision of the court, which is very, very important. It's not very used, but and not very known, but it's very, very important for that. And to finish, because I was supposed to talk just 30 minutes, but I'm I'm speaking a little bit more, but to give you some different perspectives of the different offices that I've worked on and different dynamics that I've worked on, and maybe you can compliment me. When I finished the law school, I started in I would say that the first office that I got in was, let's say, American style, your style. There was 3 merged huge offices, legal offices, that were doing especially corporate law, and it's very specialized in pharmaceutical law. And we were like, for you that might be medium, for there it's really huge. That was about 50 to 60 lawyers, and probably well, they were focused not on pleading, but especially on consulting and agreements and all this kind of legal work. Then I switched to a smaller office years later, which could be in Spain a medium size. We were like 10 lawyers, something like that. I was then the director of the Department of Criminal Proceedings, and then we had a very specialized different departments in the office, and we were doing in our department both private proceedings and also what we called the oficio, which means that you are defending publicly peoples without means, that you have also here, I think, in your system. And I finished for the moment the itinerary in a very, very small structure. This is our legal office right now, that we are 2 lawyers right now. And at the same law office, we have this law office as a criminal and family law specialized, and also a mediation and conflict resolution or alternative dispute resolution center at the same spot. So you see, even it's very, very difficult to try in 1 hour, 1 hour and a half to show up a little bit the huge practice of law in Spain. But with these 3 little examples that I'm giving of my professional life, I also try to show how these different levels, different perspectives and different dynamics that you can find in different law offices in Spain. So thank you. I'm here for what you want, so what you may want to share and comment, or what you may be interested to ask.
Anyone have a question? Oh, here for our law students, our law program here is, as you know, is 3 years for those who do it full time. And it's very common for American law students during the course of their law school career to work in law offices, to sort of as apprentices, to learn about the practice of law. Can you speak a little bit about whether or not that's the common practice there, or how you might envision, either students from Spain, or even if our students come there, what kinds of work they might be able to do, or how you use them?
Mm-hmm. This was not very useful when I was studying law. For me, it's amazing to see a courtroom that you have here, a great courtroom that you have here. I've never seen a courtroom in my studies, never. The first time I saw that was because I think the criminal procedure professor gave us the opportunity to attend one of his court proceedings, but there was something very informal, and now this has been changing. There are some universities and colleges that are providing practice during the studies and have some courtrooms, or even to practice with real cases. And there have been organized, especially the private colleges and universities, good relations with law offices to accept law students to practice before they finish their studies. And somehow, not only in law offices, but even in corporations, in national or multinational corporations, both in, for instance, in Madrid or in Barcelona. So this is being little by little incorporated, and I think now students of law in Spain have more opportunities to practice during the studies in the college and outside the college with law firms, doing real cases, and this much of the time is useful not only for them but for their career, and that allows much of the people to continue in that law firms after they finish their work and all that. So for your information, depending on the law firm, and of course an internship of 4 to 5 weeks doesn't give really the opportunity to have a deep and profound knowledge of our system, but this gives a little bit the opportunity to see how it works and to see how a law office work, and also how courts works. Of course, they work in Spanish, but in some, for instance, in that international case that we have, which is something a little bit extraordinary, the judge allows us to make the questions to the witnesses and the protected witnesses, sometimes in English and in French directly. And so, for instance, I'm allowed to make the question at the same time in Spanish and in English, or in Spanish and in French. I do it, the person understands that, and then the answer comes in French or in English, and this has to be translated by a professional. But the judge allows us to do the question in both languages, which is something a little bit extraordinary, which is not ordinary in the normal courts. Yeah.
Since Spain is a member of the EU, you probably deal a lot with foreign attorneys, but how often have you personally come across American attorneys in your career?
In my experience, this has been more about our personal interest than the normal itinerary of the people, because I've loved to travel to your country, and I remember many years ago I was present in Patterson, New Jersey, for instance, and I went to the office of the prosecutor. I went to the courts, and I was very interested to see how you were doing. And but it's not very common. Now that we have some big law offices that somehow are linked to American law offices, you have more opportunities to do so because they are more present also in our system, especially that they are also linked in Europe. One of the hubs of, let's say like that, of the law offices are in London, and most of them have somehow a law office of reference in Spain, according to some American or British law officers linked with the Spanish law office. So, but that is changing little by little, because this is, yeah, the dynamic is changing and the world is changing, of course. And in a very different jurisdiction and perception, we have the International Criminal Court, which is relatively new. And then there you can find the surprise. We were talking about that also, that even though the States is not party of that treaty, but you can find American lawyers there recognized as a list of counsel there. So you have there, of course, again, the opportunity to work together. Even there is a huge opportunity to work together in some cases, considering that the Rome Statute is based in your system, mainly as the international courts of the former Yugoslavia and Rwanda. So basically is your common law system adopted with some corrections like that, let's say like that of civil law. So it's, I think, for the future, for the present and the future, a very interesting, this collaboration between American and Canadian lawyers and Australian lawyers and British lawyers with civil law system lawyers, because we have this mixed system that it's important to know how it works in both ways, and to be very collaborative and complementary. So I think these two main ways will fulfill plenty of opportunities to collaborate.
Other questions? All right, so thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for your attention.